All right, it says we're live, so I think we are. What's going on? I am Strons, and I'm here with Cammon Randle. That's how you say that, correct?
Yeah, you got it.
Awesome. I wanted to set this up, just have a casual conversation with Cammon, see how it goes. I don't know if this is content that you guys are going to be interested in watching. We are doing this live. I doubt we'll get anyone watching live, but hey, it'll be on YouTube for the archive. And if it is something you enjoyed seeing or watching, I'd appreciate hearing the feedback, and then we can do more of them with other people. And first thing I'd like to say is, Cammon, I started watching your YouTube channel maybe like a year ago.
Oh, cool.
What do you do on your YouTube channel?
Oh, try to put stuff up. No, I started the channel, I don't know, let's see, what was it, 6 years ago or something like that? And I thought, it'd be really fun to show what I'm doing. Mostly, what I really love to do is, in regards to being a director of photography, is lighting things. So I wanted to share what I was doing with all the lighting scenarios, especially because I felt like what I was doing was working with tools and scenarios that maybe were more obtainable to kind of the YouTube crowd as opposed to your higher productions. Because from where I started and came up from, it was always like you made do with what you had. I come from the old school DIY crowd of the totally dangerous workshop lights that you'd figure out how to make barn doors for. That's what we used to do on the weekends. So anyway, the YouTube channel, I thought it'd be fun just to kind of geek out with people and talk about what we were doing and how we were doing it. And I was super critical of myself at first. I was trying to make everything super perfect and produced and professional, and no one's going to care to watch it unless I make it perfect. And I've kind of gone away from that. It's like, here's what I'm doing with my iPhone now, and that seems to work too. Okay, but I'm trying to get more stuff up. That's my biggest thing. Is just I have a bunch of backlogged projects that I need to get up.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I like watching your stuff. It's very entertaining, and it's cool to kind of see how other people do things, whether that's something I watch, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I would have never thought of that. Or, oh, I can't believe he's doing that. Why is he doing that?
Speaking of not produced, hold on, my camera's all greasy. There we
Yeah,
go.
we'll see how this goes. I'm just hoping my internet doesn't die. All the live event
You
fiasco
gotta
stuff.
move to Utah and get the Google Fibers for.
Oh, it's supposed to be coming. It's supposed to be coming, but we'll see. All right, so you mentioned director of photography. Tell people kind of what you do, what kind of projects you work on, and what is your role on those projects.
So I kind of have a couple different hats that I wear on a day-to-day basis. I do a lot of feature film work where I'll be strictly a director photographer, director photographer, a DP. I can speak. Really, I'm tired. And even when I say that, it's more like I've had a bunch of actors comment to me like, oh, it's good to see a DP behind the camera who likes to light things. I do. I like to get my hands dirty. I like to jump off the monitor, operate camera when I can, which is usually there's not enough budget on the shows that I'm working on to hire a full-on operator. But I also love lighting, and that's where I came from. Again, I never worked as an AC. Don't tell anyone that, because all my ACs. They always look at me so funny when I tell them like, hey, do this one thing. And they're like, what are you talking about? And because I've never worked as an official AC. So I came up through the lighting department, and I was a gaffer and whatnot. So anyway, on features, I'll work as a director of photography and really, really heavy handed in lighting. And then also on the more kind of commercial stuff, I'll work as a producer and a director of photography, and sometimes director, and sometimes first AD. It all depends on what's needed. You just kind of get the job done. So, I mean, I bounce around quite a bit when it comes to just getting things done, if that was the answer to your question.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you get into that? What got you started?
Well, I should have gone to med school or something, but no, this is the kind of thing I remember, this is totally cliche, but I remember watching Star Wars when I was a kid. I was an 80s child.
That's a timely subject.
Well, yeah, I mean, marketing. No,
yeah. Did they pay you to say that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm endorsed. I just remember watching, and I can tell you the exact scene. It was Han Solo jumping through the walls of the Death Star as they're closing, and I thought, this is awesome movie. I want to make movies. I want to do that. And so from day one, I just kind of always knew I wanted to do something with movies, and I've always loved cameras. I used to, I'm lucky enough to come from kind of one of the last generations that shot on film, in school at least. Well, in professionally too, but like in school, that was what we learned on. And I didn't really do proper film school, but the cameras they had access to in school were old school 35 millimeter cameras. So I had, but at the same time I was operating digital cameras, you know, the good old DVX 100, that was like, you know, I scrimped and saved for that camera.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so coming back, I always knew that was, and I used to, you know, mow lawns to buy film to shoot pictures. And just from there, I just went, what can I do? You know, I would always buy, I hated like waiting for equipment and renting equipment. I always wanted to buy it so I could just do it. And so I can remember sneaking out of the house almost with my mom's VHS video camera to go shoot skateboarding videos and snowboarding videos. And then it turned into paid wedding videos. And then it turned into, you know, Joe Schmo's Crab Shack commercial that he could play in his foyer or something like that. And I just started doing things. And then, you know, the internet came around and changed everything, which is pretty cool.
Was there a moment or a particular job or maybe a person you met that felt like maybe kind of a big break in terms of taking it from, you know, doing the skateboarding videos and the wedding videos to like that next step up? Was there a specific moment, or was it just kind of gradual?
A little bit of catalyst. It was mostly gradual, but there's a couple of people and a couple of things I can think about. The very first feature that I actually worked on as an intern and then as a juicer was a film out in Tennessee, and I drove out there totally kind of not knowing, unpaid intern, what was going to happen. I got out there and they're like, who wants to PA? And I was like, not me. And like, who wants to be on the grip department? And I was like, oh, pick me. So, and that was really baptism by fire. I just got thrown right in. And this is after me feeling like I kind of, a year of school, and also feeling like I kind of knew what I was talking about when it came to video. But at the same time, this was the first actual feature film that I'd worked on. And I just jumped in. I just was like, I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm doing. Tell me what to do. And people were speaking completely different languages. You know, when you get on set for the first time, you're like, I understand the words you're saying, but I have no idea what you're talking about. And 6 weeks of that, I came back and it was like completely different world. I could walk up to any production in town and say, hey, I'd love to meet you guys. I'd love to work for free for a day, and I can show you my work ethic, and you want to have me back. And then I would just learn about the equipment, about the technical things. I would get as close to DP as I could and ask them questions of why they were doing this, why they were doing that. But so that was the first film I've worked on, was in Tennessee for 6 weeks. And then there were a couple people in town who I can really attribute a lot of my kind of getting over the edge of that is my good friend, Phil Shepard. He's a gaffer. He's owned his own trucks and stuff for years. And he's just really took the time to, I look back now and I go, man, yeah, he really took the time to like explain things to me and be a mentor in a lot of ways. And I've tried to do that with kind of the students I come across. I feel like are really doing their best too.
Cool. That film shoot in Tennessee, sorry to get into like really specific, but I think
no, I'm sorry. If I'm ever just going long-winded, just tell me too. I'm just like,
no.
Forever. Comments
no,
like,
that's awesome.
You talk a lot before anything actually happens.
I'm available all night, so we can keep this going 2 hours. Who cares? No, but I wanted to know, because I think some people are really looking for like, okay, like how did you find that job in Tennessee? Was it like posted online? Is it a friend that you knew?
So that, and this is where, and I'm of two minds when it comes to like film school and or school in general. Because if you want to do this, if you just want to do this, you just got to do it. I've had interns and students who come out who are basically graduated, who have no reel whatsoever, but they've taken all the classes and they know this and they know that, and it's like, okay, unless you have something to show for it, show me your reel. I don't care if you've graduated and have whatever degree, show me your reel. And then on the same level, I have guys who've never been to school who come out and show me that they are willing to learn, are willing to and learn quickly and pick up on stuff. And I call them back, you know, every single time. And how to find those situations as someone who's starting out. Yeah. I was lucky enough. Well, I guess that particular show was, I got picked as an intern I went to Brigham Young University out here, not as a film student though. I was a comms major, I was a communications major. Long story there. The film department shot me down, told me I was too stupid. The comms department said, hey, come on over. You can do our media stuff with us. And they were mostly newscasting. So that was like this I was stuck in this news world. Actually, that's one of the things I think is unique about me is I've bounced between broadcast and film because they're completely different in a lot of ways, or at least they used to be. And so I've operated tons of cameras for like ESPN and sports and live events and stuff. At the same time, I could step onto a film set and direct, a narrative, which is really, I feel like I've had a really good education doing that just by being exposed to both those worlds. So anyway, I was a comms major and I heard about this film. They're looking for interns. And so I went and interviewed with the producer. They just kind of posted it on the board out there at the media department. And I was lucky enough to get picked out of, I don't know, 30 people who went to ask. I think they brought two of us. That's right. Me and my friend. I ended up rooming with the guy. His name was Jimmy. Super cool guy. And he's in the industry still too. But so that was one of those rare situations where you go and like interview and like, hey, I like this opportunity, and they pick you. He told me it's going to be a lot of carrying cables through the mud, and I was like, I like mud. But otherwise, other situations, like when I came back, I just looked up people that I knew were in the industry and said, hey, I'll work. You want me to work? I'll come work for free. Because I knew that once I did that, they would see that I wasn't stupid, I wasn't lazy, and because those are like there's three things that people look for when they're trying to find someone to bring them on to work on something. Because there's always some production where it's like, oh, all my regular guys are working, or it's a weird date or something like that. I need somebody quick. And if you show up and you're on time, you're willing to work, and you're willing to learn and even ask questions, then they're going to call you back every single time. You're going to stand out because there are a lot of lazy people in the world. So, Craigslist nowadays is a good place to start. I mean, all these messages. Facebook is amazing. If I had Facebook back when I was in school, oh my gosh, different world.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you took a similar path to what I did. I mean, my whole philosophy when I was like trying to get work for the first time was just to kind of say yes at any opportunity, whether it was some little thing helping out a friend for free, or maybe it was getting paid $50 or just food. It was just like, just say yes, just do it, because I'm not working, so I'd rather be working than not,
Exactly.
But do you have any like don't tips? You said the things that you should do. Is there anything you absolutely like? Maybe you made a mistake, or maybe you stepped on someone's toes one time. Is there anything people shouldn't do?
Oh, I've been cussed at so many times, and that wasn't so much as it shouldn't do, but just people got lost. They lost patience with the set gets stressful. People get stressed out, or even people, they just decide to tear you down for no reason because there's jerks out there. There's a lot of jerks out in the film industry, honestly. Especially when you're talking actual films and feature films. There's a lot of people who are out there. You're like, why are you even here? You don't even like yourself. I'm not sure how you got here. Maybe that's a good don't take yourself too seriously. Don't let yourself become irritated and be one of these guys who just complains about stuff, because it's kind of funny, because you could take a little bit of a military tack to it where, you're never allowed to complain down. You can only complain up. So you have like your grips and your electricians who complain about the situation, and the gaffer can be like, yeah, that sucks. But he can only complain to the directors because he's like, hey guys, we got to do this. If you're in charge of people, don't complain back down. Take not take responsibility, but be an example. That's kind of what it is. Otherwise, breaking in, don't ever pretend like you know what you're doing. I mean, okay, no, take it back. You want to show confidence, you know what you're doing, but don't ever come across like you're unteachable, like you know everything already and whatever. I mean, that's the quickest way to not get called back. Also, if you're talking about actual set etiquette, don't sit down when you don't have to. Don't close your eyes. Don't be on your phone. Don't hang out with the pretty girls all the time. The biggest thing you can do if you're starting out on set is keep your mouth shut, keep your ears open and your eyes open, and just work your hardest. So don't tell war stories until the day's over, unless you're a director, unless your name has director in the title,
Absolutely. Well, you said a little bit ago you wanted to buy this stuff rather than rent
Right.
or wait on someone else for it. Do you still have that philosophy? Like, tell me about the gear you use and why you use it. And do you rent? Do you buy? What's your deal?
I'm probably the worst example of equipment there is, because I'll buy something if I need it for one project and one shot. I'm like, I really could use that. I should buy that. Just because I hate trying to schedule gear. I don't like depending on other people. I don't like waiting on other things. So and also it kind of limits you. So it's like, for me, as far as a business standpoint, I've been able to take on a lot of projects that are equity invested, so that instead of just getting my hourly wage or my day rate and just walk away, I've been able to say, hey, you know what? I can come on and I can bring all my toys and we can make it this much better. And instead of just paying me, my little rate, I want a piece of the action. And it's been more profitable for me. It's a better relationship with the client. They feel like you're invested because you are invested. You can make that much better of a product. So yeah, I mean, I've got, I don't have tons of stuff, but I really, when I've always tried to have a camera that was, not competitive, but it was, at least industry standard. I'm kind of figuring out what to do with that right now. I've shot on the Red for a long time. I bought a Scarlet. I couldn't quite swing the Epic. It was a matter of $20,000 difference when we bought the stuff, but the Scarlet's been great. I've had a lot of people. It took a little bit of convincing sometimes, because there's a lot of buzzwords out there that producers like to hear when you're saying what gear you have, and you have to convince them that this is going to be fine. It's not going to make a difference. To be shooting 4K compared to 5K or whatever it is. But yeah, I always try and make sure I'm as self-sufficient as possible. And nowadays, especially from a business standpoint, you kind of have to pay to play, meaning I rarely get hired anymore just for me. It's, hey, this guy, he's got his camera, his 1-ton grip package. He's got an HMI package. Oh, he's got these new LEDs. Whatever it is, because it comes in as kind of like a one. I charge kind of I used to be able to atomize everything. Back in the day, it was like, here's my day rate, here's the camera's day rate, here's the grip package, and then whatever lights you pull off the truck, you can use this, use this, use this. It doesn't work that way anymore, at least not on a kind of more reality scale, out of LA scale kind of things. I just need to show up with my truck for a flat rate. And nowadays, when I buy things, I buy them either to stay competitive or to make my life easier. So that's a big question right now. Camera wise, which camera do I go with? Do I spend the extra 20 grand and get an old Dragon Epic, or do I spend another 10 grand, 17 grand and go with the Scarlet weapon? Or do I totally jump ship and go Black Magic, where, producers will be like, Black Magic, but at the same time, I know as a technical guy that it's going to be sufficient for what I'm looking for. So do I need to worry about, because a while ago I was kind of more worried about being rentable. People wanted to hire me because I had the camera, where nowadays, if I have this whole package, it's more convincing. So there's all those questions that are kind of out there right now that everyone's kind of asking themselves, what camera package do I go with? And those are my choices because I'm more commercial, feature based. There's all kinds of good options from Sony and JVC if you're going to kind of jump between the broadcast and the E&G style stuff.
It seems like it's really up to the individual to figure out what's best for them and the kind of work that they do. In regards to your work, are you working mostly with clients, with producers? How do you kind of coordinate that in terms of the people you're working with and what they're looking for?
Yeah, so right now it kind of spans the whole spectrum, because ideally for me, it's easiest if I work with the producers, because then they're doing all the client work. They come back and they say, I need this. I show up and I can just do my job and we're great. Today, I just met with a client that we are acting kind of as the production company, the creative agency, the media agency a little bit, because we're like telling them where to put it afterwards. Where can you, here's how you buy some YouTube commercials or whatever it is. What's the best way to SEO these videos for YouTube or whatever it is. So I'm having to kind of always stay up on those kind of things. But yeah, I'll work as a producer. I mean, I work as a producer. I enjoy producing. It's kind of a good problem solving task where you can put these systems together and stuff. But I always like it better when I can just be a TP. Otherwise, like we just finished up a Kickstarter video where I team directed, my partner, Matt, he directed it, I DP'd it, but also produced all the location stuff, the talent stuff. He and the writer worked through all the kind of script breakdown, the VFX. So it's always like this, whatever needs to happen, we do. And then on set, I was being first AD as well to keep the thing moving forward. We had a couple guys doing art who are also doing talent stuff. So it just, whatever needs to get done, needs to get done. And nowadays, it's mostly just wear a lot of hats, working with clients as well as working with producers.
If someone checks out your YouTube channel and they like the kind of content that you do, what do you think is kind of the minimum requirements to do and get into what you're doing now?
Oh man, the minimum requirements are so small. It's great nowadays. Um, I could almost say you need an iPhone and a couple lights, but it's not quite like that. Nowadays, you know, honestly, you could spend $800 at Costco and get a T6i or whatever it is nowadays. And then go to Amazon and get a couple of these, you know, LED light panels for a couple $100, and you could do some pretty decent corporate videos. And with a little bit of creativity, you could expand that into doing a little more creative stuff. The spectrum of projects are be a little small. Obviously, you have to start thinking about cameras and lenses and stuff when you start thinking about higher end things. But man, the barrier to entry is so low, it's ridiculous. Yeah, was that your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about on the high end? What kind of cameras do you prefer to shoot with? I know you mentioned the Scarlett. Do you ever go out of your way to rent something even like higher end than that, or do you think that's sufficient for most of the work you do?
So some people, I'm kind of a red guy, or at least I used to be a total red guy. I wasn't quite what I liked about the red was the resolution, obviously the red code, which is, you know, pseudo raw. I was never really intrigued by the Alexa. Other DPs love the Alexa for the color and the you know, the rendering quality of everything. I was always like, yeah, but it's still 1080p and I can get all these cool things with the red. Also, coming from a VFX background, we love resolution, so that helps us kind of make that decision there. Alexa is nice, but I've never felt overly drawn to it because of A, price, B, I feel like I've gotten everything I've wanted out of the red. Blackmagic, when they first came on the scene, I love what they're doing because the indie filmmaker inside of me is like, just like, awesome, stick it to the man, you know. And that's kind of what red did when they first came out. When we heard about I was in the tent when they announced the red one, and we were like, yeah, right, this is never going to happen. And then they did, and it was crazy cheap compared to what you could get at that time. You know, you could get the Viper, or whatever it was, the Sony, or I can't remember now. It's too long ago. Anyway, but yeah, so me personally, I like to shoot on a camera that is at least Super 35. And I'm going to contradict myself here in a second, but I like to stick with Super 35, some kind of a raw codec. So that's why I like the Blackmagic too, because as much as I don't like to admit it, I do fall back on not being stuck burning the look into the image, you know. And you can get that pretty close with like a log format that now a lot of things can do. Nowadays also it's not so big of a deal, but 4K I think is kind of a minimum for me. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, you know, lens choices and such. Having said that, so anyway, the red always kind of covered those bases for me. The new Blackmagic stuff is also super close. So that's what I'm thinking about, like the Ursa Mini, the 4.6K version. Oh, dynamic range has to be pretty decent, obviously. So my personal cameras right now are the Scarlett, which will shoot 4K. Multiple frame rates hasn't been ever like a deal breaker for me. It's starting to be more, I've needed to rent like an Epic more often for commercial stuff. But I've been able to also utilize other cameras for that. So my personal cameras, like I said, are the red Scarlett, which I got to figure out what to do next. I have the Lumix series GH2, GH3, GH4. So the GH4 is the latest, obviously 4K version from the Panasonic. It's an awesome camera, although it is micro four thirds, so the sensor is un poco, you know, it's just little. But again, that's been the trade-offs for that camera has been awesome, and I've been buying, to my wife, lots of Lumix, you know, lenses to compensate for the small sensor factor. But yeah, I'm really interested to see where they go next, because you could also shoot log on those cameras now as opposed to just their color profiles. But anyway, whenever I can, I'll shoot red, just because then you have that much flexibility in post, and it just looks so nice when you get to the image later on.
It's interesting. I used to be very, very heavy in the red camp, and then I don't know if I just lost maybe my fanboyism or whatever. I still think they're great cameras. I love them. But they were just a lot of the work that I do, I mean, a good chunk of it is interviews, and I can't afford to film an hour-long interview with two cameras in RAW, red code or close to RAW, right? And so I've really gravitated towards the GH4 for that kind of stuff. And then for the shorter format in terms of the clips that you're recording, I've gravitated towards the higher end stuff like your Reds. I just use the Sony FS7, fantastic camera. Really like that. And the Blackmagic stuff looks really cool. I just wish they'd finally ship those things.
I know. I would have bought one 3 times by now. Like every time I'm like, I need to get one. Now they're not shipping. Yeah, the Sonys, I keep coming back to those. I shifted a while back when they weren't really cinema ready. They were more like E&G cameras. And that's when everything went from mini DV, HDV stuff. Oh man, we could talk cameras all day long. It should be a whole different podcast. Just the whole progression of I wish I had all. I have in my office at the office. I have almost all my cameras on the shelves. But yeah. So back in the day when it all shifted, and I almost bought a 5D Mark II, and then they announced the 7D, and I'm like, okay, this looks like it's a little bit more video friendly. And so we bought that, and that was a workhorse forever. I love that camera. And like you're saying, sometimes you feel like, man, I don't want to shoot 4K interviews for like 4 hours, 6 hours, whatever it is, because it's just, logistics wise, it's just a pain in the butt. The data, the power, the camera's big, it's loud, it overheats, all this stuff. But then I started realizing, it's 4K. I could totally punch in and get 3 angles out of this. All the classic cliche things that people do. That's why the GH4 is so cool. Is you could do all that stuff on top of having that small package. And I took my GH3 and GH4 to Canada last year and shot like 20 hours of dental lectures. And it blew my mind that I could do that on these tiny little cameras compared to what I used to, I used to do a 3-camera setup for these corporate live streaming events and have a truck, and now I show up with a backpack. It's funny.
It's pretty crazy how far technology has come. Just, I mean, I don't know, me and you, we're pretty young guys. I mean, you even have the older guys who are even more old school, and where they come from, it's like, it's pretty nuts that we can all do all that. And it is funny you mentioned Red, because like I remember the Red 1, I think I still have a down payment sitting in my Red account deposit because I never took delivery of it because those things were just broken from the get-go. And then all of a sudden, all these other cameras came out. They're a little bit more affordable in terms of price range, and I was poor and broke at the time. So, but that's another story. Where do you think the best place is for someone to start? You mentioned film school and getting an education. Where do you think someone should go and what they should do as like an entry point?
They should start in their bedroom on YouTube. Just start watching stuff, and then, that's maybe even before that, you should just start shooting stuff on your cell phone. I mean, it comes down to it's in you or it's not in you. You either do it or you don't do it. And that comes back to like me asking people if they have a reel or not. It's like, oh yeah, I worked on these shows. It's like, well, what have you shot? If you haven't spent the time on I have an intern. He's probably going to watch this, and he's not an intern anymore, so he knows who he's talking about, but he cracks me up. I love him to death. But he is the quintessential film student. It's like, he's always talking about his next film, this film, that film. And you're just like, how many movies have you shot? And that's kind of what in my mind, what people need to be, whether you actually are just shooting films all day long or not, you need to be thinking about, okay, I don't want to say you need to be, but that's going to make it easier for you. If it's a chore to like sit down and go, oh, now this is fun, but now I got to figure out how to like put a script together, get my friends together, put a schedule. It's like, that's not going to work for you because it's too much work out in the real world to have it be not something you do just have it be in your blood. So the first thing you should do is just find out if it's for you. I ended up firing an intern last summer because it just wasn't in him. You could just tell. He's just like, well, this part of filmmaking is fun, but this part's not. It's like, well, I can't use you then because you can't pick and choose. This is a business. Either you do it or you don't. And especially on the lower end where you're wearing all the hats. So if you want to get into it, you take your cell phone and you start doing 1-minute things. And there's so many of those people out there nowadays. I mean, even Vine, these Vine guys are like, how do you think of this stuff? I can't think in that short of segments. But I know it's dorky and it's stupid, but like everywhere I go, I'm always like, oh, if I was going to engineer this shot of this person walking down this hallway that I'm sitting there waiting at the doctor's office, here's how I would do it, you know? And it's like, I can't stop thinking about it. It's dumb, it's dorky, and it's totally nerdy, but I can't stop. I just really can't. And I think, oh, I'd probably light it like this, or I would turn off these lights, or it'd be cool. What if you did it this way, you know? And you don't have to go that crazy, but that helps. If you're that crazy about it, then you'll just do it, and you don't have to worry about it. You just have to pick up a camera. And that's why I've always liked owning things too, because there's no barriers. Take those barriers away and you can do it quicker, easier, better, faster. And so pick up a camera, whether it's your phone, the Canon EOS M is like $200 on eBay. Looks amazing. It's a tiny little camera, looks awesome. You can learn about lenses, you can learn about depth of field, you can get an amazing picture, start shooting images. That's how you start. And then you look at it and you go, wow, I suck. And then you know the next time where to point it differently, and that's going to teach you. It's really about just doing. You can learn, and this is what drove me nuts about my schooling, all the film classes I took, and this is like, again, a whole nother discussion, they were all theory. This is the biggest problem with what school was, because there was this fight going on between practicality and theory. The theory guys were winning when I was at school, and it was all theory, and yet all these guys come out who had no idea what to do, because once you start doing it, you realize, oh, this is harder than I thought. This is harder than it looked like. How do I get it to look like that? Well, you just got to do it 1,000 times to understand how to make it look like that. So
yeah, I think you hit the nail. I think you hit the nail on the head. I say it all the time. I wish Nike hadn't trademarked it, but I think it's just do it. Like I tell so many of my friends and people I know, and they're talking about stuff, and even myself, like how many times you sit around and you're like at the beginning, it's like, oh, I want to make more videos for my YouTube channel. Like that was me. It's like, oh, this Cammon Randle guy, he makes awesome videos on YouTube. I should do that. And I sat around like not doing it. And then also I was like, no, you just got to do it, get out there and do it. And you know, you're going to have some failures, you're going to make some mistakes, but that's how you learn the best. At least that's how I've learned the best.
Yeah, I mean, and I look at other DPs reels and I watch people's stuff and I just go, why do I even try? It's so much better than mine. And I have to slap myself and I go, take my own advice. If I like his stuff, I should just go out and make my stuff look as good by just doing it and see what happens.
Just do it, see what happens. You mentioned 4K and how things have been changing, and now with Vine and YouTube. Where do you think video production is headed? You mentioned at the very beginning of this that like it's not as easy just to get a full-time gig getting paid $500 an hour. I was talking to a guy who's like, a little bit older. I don't want to put an age on him, but he's a little bit older and he's been doing it for a long time. And he's like, oh yeah, I used to make $500 an hour and now I make like 20. Where do you think video production's headed?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different areas you can think of because people are coming out of school. I mean, there's a growing need for these corporate video guys, and that's great. That's great news for people who want to come out. Not great for guys who want to come out and make films and commercials, but awesome for these guys who are a little more technical. If you find yourself enjoying the gear side of it as opposed to like the end product side of it, because you're going to go into these situations where all these companies are going to need media. They want to be on YouTube. They want to be seen. They want to be found. They want to be able to communicate these things to their clients, their potential clients, whatever it is. And they are either looking to hire somebody or to train their team or to outsource it or whatever it is. The problem is that because now every mom and pop shop needs something, they're all going to be wanting it done for $25 or whatever it is. Like you're saying, I've had friends who've been in this business way longer who I know DPs who are network guys who are now having to charge rates that they charged 10 years ago, 20 years ago, where they should have been able to kind of roll up their rates because they're that much more experienced, that much more credibility. But the industry, the economy, the whatever it is, the need for it is falling back down. Whereas, and even, here when we shoot stuff, we can't tell people who it's for because there are some locations that have been burned by big shows that come in and like, oh, well, we're shooting a commercial. Oh, we're $1,000 an hour to come use our location. But if you come in and say, hey, we just want to shoot this YouTube video, they're like, okay, great. Just don't ruin anything. And maybe like $200, just the money's not there anymore. Looking at other parts of the industry, you kind of have to make it for yourself in some ways because the money's stretched so much thinner now. No one's really willing to kind of toss the bills out, as it were. And that's a little bit, I kind of perpetuate that, whereas I'm going to wear more hats. So I only have this amount of budget. Well, instead of spending it all on everybody, I know I can do most of these jobs. So I'm going to do them and keep a majority of that budget in house so that I can pay my bills, make the project look better, and then go to the next one. So you have to kind of get out there and this is where I've also kind of worked with some of my camera guys, is I feel bad, or it's like, they've worked with me for like 4 years, but I can't pay them anymore as an operator. I can't give them a raise this next year. They either have to keep working for me for this much and not really progress, or they need to go off and become their own little independent producer guy and get paid, $2,000 for the small projects instead of $350 a day to come and shoot for me for 2 days. So I think that's where a little bit, at least like I said, on this level where it's all independent commercial stuff, business to business, YouTube level things, where it's not a I kind of see the world broken into 3 tiers. You have like your industry, or your small guys, just total little low budget things between $500 and $2,500 projects. Then you have like your producers who go to companies themselves and say, hey, you want a marketing video done? I can do that for you. Let's make it happen. And they're like, great, I have anywhere between 5 to 25,000 maybe. And then you have like your agency companies, who you have a company who goes to a creative agency and says, hey, I'm a brand. Let's get some what am I trying to say here? Commercial things happen where you have a group of commercials campaign. Let's do a campaign, work with me on some branding and some stuff like that. And then they come to a production company and say, hey, we have 50 grand to do these 3 spots. What can you do? You're like, okay, great, let's do that. So those are the kind of the 3 tiers. And as it goes up, obviously it's easier to work with somebody, and you get a piece of the pie. Whereas it gets further down, you kind of have to be out there baking the pie to be able to go to the next project. And so I've baked a lot of pies in my life to then get to a point where, I like working with agencies and producers now, because I don't have to be out there picking the cherries, getting the flour, whatever. I can just show up and, to continue the metaphor, just sprinkle the sugar on top and get paid for it. So, I think the industry is going, there's a bigger need, but a smaller compensation for the need, if that makes any sense. And I compensate for that on my end by owning the gear. Getting myself out there is more than just kind of like, I do one thing. I can do a lot of things. And even my producer buddies, like, I try, and I don't like to do this because, so I shoot, I edit, I direct, I do a little bit of visual effects, I do a lot of motion graphics. I'm not amazing at those things, except for maybe being a DP, but I can do all the other things. But most of the projects that happen, I don't have to be amazing at any of those things other than just the one being a DP, because the image can look awesome, and then I just get everything else to kind of pass. But that's been able to make it so I can feed my 4 hungry children.
I think you're seeing something that I've been seeing for quite a few years now. I think, like, first of all, there's Hollywood, right? Like films and movies, like that's, and maybe even like TV a little bit. That's kind of its own realm. And I think that's here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere, but I also don't know that it's growing any bigger than it already has been. It seems like the same number of movies that kind of come out, and if anything, there's a lot more flops than there were before. But I don't know. I don't pay too much attention to the actual numbers on it. It just seems like it's kind of the same. But what I've seen is exactly like you're saying, this other side of things where it's YouTube, websites, companies trying to have that media, trying to make that content, looking for video and people to make nice looking stuff. And so in that regard, the demand is there, supply, demand. People are demanding this, but they haven't quite figured out that you get what you pay for. And I think a lot of companies are maybe just starting to realize that. But for a while, it's been just people like, I want a video on my website. I want to be on YouTube. I only have $100. Can you make this happen? And they find someone who's in college, they hire them, and then they get the video and they're like, oh, well, that doesn't look like a movie. Why doesn't that look like a movie? And they're kind of a little disappointed. And it's been interesting. Some of the clients that we work with, they'll start off in that place where they want just like the cheapest. They just want the videos done. And then over time, as they grow, or maybe their business changes, they kind of realize maybe we should start, investing in some more quality type stuff. So I think it's a change that will happen. It just probably will take a little bit of time to get there. So I don't know. We'll see. I do think it's exciting a time for people who are in college and who are looking to get into this, because now compared to when I started, maybe when you started, it seems like there are more jobs. You might need to be more of a jack of all trades, like you're talking about. I remember one of the first jobs I ever did, I was just a PA, and there was a jib operator, and there was some downtime, as there always is. And I was just kind of, talking to him a little bit, and he was like, if I can give you one piece of advice, it'd be this: you should specialize in one thing and just do that one thing only. And I'm just some young guy, like just an idiot, and I'm like, no, I want to do everything. I'm an editor, I'm a shooter, I'm a director, I do everything. He's like, no, I'm a jib operator. That's all I do. That's what I get paid to do. I don't do anything else. And I think there's room for those kind of people, maybe in that Hollywood area where they need that specialist.
About that much. Because you can make a lot of good money if you're that guy in here, but to get to be that guy, I think is really tough.
Oh, definitely. And I found that I have made more connections, gotten more work and more jobs by being good at a lot of things. And it's actually helped my other work. I don't know if you're this way, but like, I'm sure that you doing visual effects like helps your shooting, and vice versa, that everything you learn, everything you do kind of amplifies all the other things you know how to do, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. I think that as if you want to be a director, you should pick up a camera and try and shoot some stuff. Grab a sound recorder and be a sound guy for a day. I mean, this is all known stuff, but yeah, if you try and do these other things, then you're going to be that much more effective, and people down the road are going to love you so much more because you're going to know exactly what happens. I've been hired a number of times as a DP because they've been burned by people, especially visual effects heavy stuff. They've been burned by DPs who have no idea what they're doing with green screen. I've shot a lot of green screen in my life. And so we know where all the demons are hiding, right? And being able to say, okay, yeah, I've done the visual effects. I know that this little spot right here, your post guys are going to be just crying to you about how this is going to cost you twice as much about this. And so we can take 15 minutes, fix this, let's do it now, instead of just folding to the first AD is like, we gotta go now. And the director's like, he's telling me we gotta go, let's go. You can say, trust me, this is gonna be better. And then it comes back later on, and then the editor and the VFX guys are like, who shot this? This is amazing. And the director will go, hey, remember that time you did? Yeah, they love you for that. And it happens. It really does. So if you can be that guy, the sound guy's going to love you later on. The directors, the producers are going to love you because they're going to find out that this is a much smoother process down the road than it was the last time they used somebody else.
So what would you say to somebody who's looking to up their game, maybe increase their quality, and they're like, how do I get better? How do I make my stuff look better, sound better? What do you think are some kind of good tips for people to take away in terms of upping their quality?
When you come across a problem, write it down first off, because you'll forget if you're crazy busy like me. Like I've had the same audio glitch for like 2 years that I finally was just like, I finally bought a freaking dead cat, It's like you get out there and you've done enough hacking of wind solutions, and finally you're like, oh yeah, I gotta buy a dead cat. So anyway, write it down, and then sorry, what was the question again? I got just sidetracked.
Increasing quality. Someone is out there.
YouTube. Watch YouTube. Because everybody is sharing on YouTube, which is amazing, and I love it. So if there's a problem, get on YouTube, or if it's not a problem, just watch. Just subscribe to 1,000 channels of filmmaker guys who like to talk tech and geek out about stuff. And I learn stuff every day. I watch any kinds of photography, especially photography stuff, because photographers take a different approach to lighting a lot of times than film guys. And so I go, oh, I never thought of it like that, especially because a lot of these stills photographers are moving from strobes and flashes to hot and continuous lights, which is what we do. And so they're taking their kind of approaches and stuff, and you learn a new technique. And so, yeah, watch as much YouTube as you can, and then try it out the next time on your particular situation and see what happens. That's how you up your game, is you just kind of expose yourself to new scenarios and try different things.
What's been your biggest struggle in all this, in terms of breaking ahead, getting work, maybe personal struggle? I don't know. Just what kind of roadblocks have you met along the way?
Honestly, taking time to sharpen the saw, as it were, because you could always be doing something. You could always be cutting that project you were supposed to have done already. For me, on a personal level, it's not really a problem, but I have 4 kids, and my wife and I do tons of fitness. My wife is a fitness instructor, so, or she's a coach, fitness coach. And so we do a ton of like marathons and things like that. And I try and incorporate, I do a lot of videos for her, which is fun, which is great. But I find myself kind of going, I really should take the time, instead of jumping on this particular project I know is going to pay me a few dollars, if I can step back and do something that's going to invest in me, I know next time those few dollars might be, more a few dollars, because then I can have a better product in the end. And I want to take us back a little bit. I have a friend of mine, Cole Webley. He's a director now. Awesome director. He and I went to school at the same time, and maybe he's heard this by now, and maybe I kind of use this scenario. I feel like we paralleled a lot because we both were in school at the same time. Both started at BYU at the same time. Both were doing kind of like, we both wanted to be DPs. He did all the right stuff. He took a little more of the risky route and jumped on and did some really high-end looking stuff right off the bat. I did it the other way around. I did the more kind of corporate, knew I could make some money, lower end stuff, and started working. And our careers kind of did this, I feel like. Whereas he got repped by a really good company. He's directed a lot of really good stuff. He can kind of get what he wants as far as rates now. Awesome guy, really talented, did everything right. I feel like I did a little more like safe way of doing things, took a little less risk. And I feel like it's kind of not hurt me, but it hasn't allowed for the opportunities then to advance, where now I'm taking the risk. I feel like, oh, well, now that I have some equipment and some money and I can try these things, well, it's a little bit too late in some regards, just because of the point of my life where I don't have time to go. But I've shot a few features on my own and whatnot, so I've done those things. But I feel like, I probably should have taken more risks in the beginning and tried to do things a little bit more ambitious, and then instead of waiting to do them now, you know what I mean? So that's kind of been a challenge, is looking back and going, I probably should have been more of a risk taker instead of more of I'll just do it slow and take it easy and see what happens. I was still working like crazy and I was still meeting all kinds of people, but I didn't ever take a loan out to shoot a commercial, for example, or whatever it is. I never took that leap to fund a 35 millimeter project myself. It was always waiting for a client to pay for it. And I always shot on video. And so everything I had to show looked like video. Whereas I had some other friends who had reels that were just showing, that looked like they could just put this on air right then, where my stuff looked like, oh, this is way before the internet and before the internet. This is before the internet. This is before YouTube and before we had full frame digital sensors. And so everything looked super crappy. And I kind of look back and go, man, I should have probably taken a few more risks when I was young and could bounce back if I needed to. Whereas now I don't really want to I am taking risks, but they're more calculated. It's more like I probably could have been further along in my career if I'd done bigger things sooner. If that makes sense.
Do you think that that's a good, because you always hear that, right? The filmmaker who took out a second mortgage or whatever, got the big loan to make their dream project, and then it all crashed and burned and they're in debt. Do you think that is a common story, or do you think more people should take those kind of risks and see what happens?
That's really a personal, I think, question, because, I don't think, debt is a hard thing. It's like, what's the worst that could happen? Honestly, that's what you need to ask yourself. What's the worst that could happen? And if the worst that can happen is something you can't recover from, don't do it. And I'm talking about, off the top of my head, I'm going to say, if you have a wife and kids and are a successful computer programmer, don't go back to school to be a filmmaker. You can get your same satisfaction by grabbing a camera and shooting stuff for YouTube right now. But if you're a young guy and don't really want to, you're like, oh, should I do film? Should I do whatever? Especially nowadays, like I said, the barrier to entry is so low. It doesn't cost more than a couple $1,000s to do a project nowadays. So yeah, go ahead and try it. We shot a film, don't tell anyone this, we shot a film for like 15 grand. And that's like ridiculously low, obviously, ridiculously low. But it doesn't take that much to do nowadays. But yeah, I would say, look at like, so now I wouldn't mortgage my house and risk my children's college fund to try a project, just because me personally, I feel like those are things I'm not going to risk, because I know where I am in my life and I can get there eventually. But with maybe it was just me and my wife, and we wanted to move to California and try it. Why not? You know what I mean? So that's a personal question. Like I said, though, I would think about what's the worst that can happen, and if you can bounce back from that, try it. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Be smart.
For sure, for sure. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time, so I just got one more question, and maybe it's a big one, but walk me through like your philosophy in terms of how you handle a project start to finish. So that can be as long or as short as you want, but I think it's kind of valuable to see your insights and other people's insights into how they handle a project. So let's say a client comes to you and they're like, hey, we want to make a commercial. What do you do?
Well, you need to kind of, I always start with thinking, okay, what is the end result? And that's with any kind of marketing piece or sales piece or anything. It's like, okay, the client's saying, I want this, but do they really want that? And sometimes they're totally on the ball and know exactly what they want. And you ask them that and they think that you're insulting them. And sometimes they're like, oh yeah, no, they just saw some video they liked and thought we need something like that. So I like to find out, from the client, like what exactly is that really what you're looking for? Or is it you're looking to make sales? Or you're looking to be funny? You're looking to, whatever it is. So I like to really dive deep with the client, ask all kinds of questions, find out if they know what they want, they know who their audience is, they know what the plan is, why they're doing it, all that stuff. Because then you don't get down the road and they suddenly realize that this is going to cost a lot and they've already committed to some things, or they don't have the pipeline in place or whatever it is, and they have to back out or something like that. That nobody likes that. And then you kind of think about what level to produce this at. Is it me and an intern running around, or is it, can I bring on my basic crew, or is it like, hey, can I hire everybody and just do it right? And then you can start making decisions like, okay, for talent, is it people in your office, or can I call an agency and get some real actors in here? And then I start putting in things to my spreadsheets, to organize stuff. Make sure there's a script. I've had a couple of times in my life which you look back and go, I did not read the script, and I should have read the script, because all of a sudden there are naked dancing people running around everywhere. Whatever it is, it's like, I did not know that was going to happen. Yeah, you make sure there's a good solid script and that everybody's signed off on it. Some people are really good at contracts. I'm not so good at contracts. I do mostly kind of memos. We'll get clients to sign basic, just sign off on scripts or concepts or something like that, just so it's a piece of paper they know that they're making a commitment to. We don't get real technical in the details though, because nobody, if it comes down to, if you're getting that legal about things, I'm just going to walk away anyway if it's going to comes down to that. Or not walk away, but if there's going to be conflict, I'm not going to make a big deal about it. I'm going to cut my losses and go if they're going to start being jerks about things. Let's see. And then you just start kind of building it out, making sure. The other thing that's really important is making sure the client has a clear understanding of what's going to happen. You want to get examples from them. They really like the Dove ad. They really like the whatever, this example, that example. That way you can kind of build your project based on their expectations. And then you can either meet those or exceed those, but at least you know where they want to land, instead of them taking a nap. We've had literally them taking a napkin, like drawing a stick figure robot, like this is what we want, and you're like, that's not what you want. You want freaking Transformers. I know you want Transformers. And so you have to give them Transformers. And then you just really want to make sure there's tons of communication, because there's nothing worse at the end of the day of having a client come back and be like, that's not what I wanted, even though you feel like you've been communicating the entire time, and but you haven't been. You haven't been making sure that you're asking the right questions, and you've been giving updates along the way. And this is a real double-edged sword, because some clients have no imagination and you show them a piece that's not colored and they're less like, this looks like crap. It's like, imagine it looking awesome, and then you'll be happy. I don't know. My philosophy is just make sure that you're doing your best work always. Because I like to try and own every piece that I do. And sometimes that can get to where I'm putting more into it than it needs to be. I have a producer friend who's always like, remember, infomercial, not feature, infomercial. So I have to like scale it back. I'm like, okay. He's like, you're trying too hard. It's like, okay, fine. But yeah, trying to just do your best on every single project and making it something that you can then use yourself or that you can own and be awesome. And the client can feel that, they'll notice that, they appreciate that, and they'll come back because they feel like that you've done more than just check the boxes and pumped out something out of a factory.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that's spot on. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this, and hopefully people can watch it and enjoy it. Where do people find you online, and what are they looking for?
The most bestest place is probably just YouTube. So YouTube/Cammon Randle. That's just me. It's my brand. I have a couple of in business ventures I have some equipment and stuff that I sell, which is always a big mess. As far as this, everyone's like, I have people who buy stuff and like, I thought it was a scam site. I'm like, yeah, it looks like a scam site. Sorry. But there's a few, just trying to diversify my portfolio. I rep some light companies and whatnot, and we're trying to get everything online. But the best place is just YouTube. Like I said, I'm trying to commit in 2016 to put more content up, whether it's me and the iPhone or more produced, something like that. You can come friend me on Facebook too. I like to have friends. But yeah, you can email me at CammonRandle@gmail if you want to. It's there. Cool. It's a small enough community. I mean, don't spam me, people, but if you want to talk shop, I'm more than willing.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to that because you have an awesome YouTube channel, and I look forward to whenever you post a new video, I'm like, oh yes, finally. It's been 6 months since the last one.
I know, it's bad. I've had this camera cart that I built. The problem is, again, it's the perfectionist in me. It's like I built this camera cart and I keep adding little things like, oh wait, I'll do this and then I'll do the video. Oh wait, I'll do this and then I'll do the video. It's pretty awesome now. I have to do the video.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you again. And I think that's it, unless there's anything else you wanted to add.
I think I've spoken way too much. Everyone's probably just tired of me now.
No, they got to sit back, relax. They busted open their bag of popcorn. It was a good time. It's a good time. I appreciated it anyway.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right, later.